Yoon Kyung was a renowned lawyer specializing in divorce cases. Most recently, she'd secured a settlement for a client 3 times larger than expected, further elevating her reputation. However, she was facing a persistent problem. She desperately needed another lawyer to help manage her caseload, but no one could withstand the pressure of working with her. In the past 3 months, 3 associates had come and gone. This worried attorney Young immensely. He entered Yoon Kyung's office, gently reminding her that the new hire starting today was the most promising of the recent applicants. He urged his senior to be kinder and more supportive, lest her office remain perpetually vacant. The new hire reporting for duty in the divorce consultation room was attorney Yu Rai. Yu Rai had hoped to work in the corporate law department on the 13th floor, but somehow found herself assigned to divorce law on the 15th. She entered the consultation room to meet her supervisor, who turned out to be none other than attorney Yoon Kyung. Yu Rai recalled an incident from law school where she'd made a less than stellar impression on the renowned attorney Cha. She now confronted Yoon Kyung, asking if she'd been deliberately assigned to this department as payback for that prior encounter. Attorney Cha explained that the reassignment from corporate to divorce law was likely meant as a challenge for the new hire. When Yu Rai inquired about transferring to her desired department, Yoon Kyung offered a deal. If Yu Rai won consecutive divorce cases, she would recommend her for a transfer. Watching Yu Rai's determined departure, attorney Cha found herself intrigued by the new associate. Cha assigned Yu Rai her first case, scheduled for the following day, and instructed her to meet with the client immediately. 10 minutes later, Yu Rai met her first client, a man named Dong Sik, who arrived with his son. Yu Rai gathered information from him and reviewed the case file. The file noted the husband's infidelity, but Dong Sik claimed he was falsely accused. He insisted that Yi Jai, the woman his wife accused him of having an affair with, was merely an employee. He described his wife as mentally unstable, prone to losing control and constantly accusing him of infidelity, even going so far as to confront him at his workplace. This, he claimed, significantly impacted his work. His son corroborated his story. Yu Rai, hearing this, fully believed the husband. When she reported the situation to Yoon Kyung, her senior asked if she thought their client was having an affair. Yu Rai, naive and confident in what she'd heard, insisted that Dong Sik was not. The next day, en route to the first mediation hearing, Yu Rai diligently reviewed the documents. Yoon Kyung advised her to respond with, "I will address this in the next hearing if the judge asked any difficult questions." The judge announced that the plaintiff, Dong Sik's wife, was seeking a divorce and division of assets. Yu Rai, on behalf of her client, refuted the divorce request. She argued that her client was the victim in this marriage due to his wife's excessive suspicion and aggressive behavior. At this point, the wife's lawyer entered, presenting evidence in the form of photos and text messages between Dong Sik and Yi Jai. The judge requested the plaintiff's lawyer read the messages aloud. They revealed explicit conversations between the two, discussing intimate encounters and even mentioning condoms. Despite this, Yu Rai continued to defend her client, claiming the messages were untrue, though she now realized he was indeed lying. Dong Sik met with Yu Rai, saw the messages, yet remained nonchalant, denying any wrongdoing. He then offered absurd explanations for the incriminating abbreviations. Hai meaning two in Vietnamese, often used as slang for sex, meant they were going to eat sausages. BCS condoms referred to a payment card, and O was praising a mojito. Following Yoon Kyung's advice, Yu Rai presented these same explanations in the next hearing. Everyone in the courtroom found her arguments comical. Yu Rai then presented a recording demonstrating the wife's excessive suspicion, as she had also accused Yu Rai of being her husband's mistress. 2 witnesses, colleagues of Dong Sik and Yi Jai, also testified, corroborating the claims of the wife's disruptive behavior at the husband's workplace. The judge acknowledged the information and adjourned the second hearing, stating the verdict would be announced in the next. Outside the courthouse, Yu Rai was accosted and berated by the plaintiff's family. The mother then proceeded to slap her own son, accusing him of accepting 30 million won from his father to testify against her. A heated argument ensued between mother and son. The son finally snapped, yelling that he'd witnessed 20 years of this and was sick of it. He stormed off, leaving his mother weeping, claiming her husband had had 6 affairs since their son was 5, even bringing his mistresses to their home. Yu Rai was deeply disturbed by this revelation. Despite everything, Yu Rai technically won the case. The wife was granted the divorce but received no financial settlement as she couldn't prove infidelity and was even ordered to pay all court fees. When Yu Rai called her client to inform him, his mistress answered the phone. Though she knew he was a philanderer, the confirmation still left her reeling. Several other lawyers in the divorce department threw a celebratory party for Yu Rai's first victory. Attorney Wu Jin offered some cynical advice. This profession is harsh, regardless of the client. Once you take the money, you must win by any means necessary. Back in her office, intending to continue working, Yu Rai read the court's decision and, overwhelmed, started to write a resignation letter. Remembering a colleague's mention of a relaxing space on the 16th floor, she went there to compose herself. Yoon Kyung also returned to her office to retrieve some documents. Noticing the light on in Yu Rai's office and then seeing her on the 16th floor, she followed. There, Yu Rai witnessed her boss's husband in a compromising position with a long-haired woman, clearly not Yoon Kyung. As her boss's husband attempted to flee, Yoon Kyung called out to Yu Rai, startling the couple. Yu Rai quickly joined Yoon Kyung and they left together. Outside, Yu Rai started to mention the husband but stopped herself. She said goodnight to her boss and went home. The next day, Yoon Kyung met with two clients simultaneously seeking divorces. The two families were close friends, regularly camping together, but one husband was having an affair with the other wife. The affair was discovered during one of these camping trips. Min Jeong witnessed her friend's wife embracing her own husband. Min Jeong's husband was the son of a National Assembly member, so Yoon Kyung assured her she would secure the best possible outcome. The first hearing concerned the divorce case of Jun Hui, the husband, and Mai Jin, the wife. Yoon Kyung presented video evidence of Mai Jin and Min Seok together, along with their text messages and Mai Jin's recorded confession. Faced with this irrefutable evidence, Min Seok openly admitted to the affair. He even went so far as to speak on Mai Jin's behalf, expressing his desire to gain custody of her child. Given the intertwined nature of the two divorces, the judge ordered all four parties to appear at the next hearing, where both cases would be addressed simultaneously. Outside the courtroom, Yoon Kyung remarked to the defendant's lawyer that Min Seok's father, being a National Assembly member, knew how to smooth things over. Back at the office, Yu Rai remained preoccupied with Yoon Kyung's husband's infidelity, agonizing over whether to disclose what she'd seen. She eventually met with attorney Yoon Ho for drinks and advice. After hearing Yu Rai's predicament, Yoon Ho advised her to reveal the affair. The next day, as Yu Rai prepared to tell Yoon Kyung, she was interrupted. Yoon Kyung mistakenly assumed Yu Rai was about to resign, having seen the draft resignation letter on her computer. The mediation session arrived quickly. The two couples sat formally on opposite sides, plaintiffs and defendants. Yoon Kyung presented the first settlement offer. She stated that her client, Jun Hui, would have custody of their child and pay Mai Jin 100 million won. Min Seok's lawyer countered with what he claimed was a better offer. Min Seok would give his wife, Min Jeong, 30% of their total assets. Jun Hui would no longer have to pay Mai Jin the 100 million won. However, Min Seok and Mai Jin would raise all three children from both couples. When his wife and Jun Hui objected, Min Seok argued that Min Jeong would never earn 2 billion won in her lifetime. He added that he was preparing to send all three children to international schools. At this point, Yoon Kyung stated that her client needed time to consider. Yu Rai felt indignant at Min Seok using money to pressure her two clients. She and Yoon Kyung engaged in a heated debate about the defendant's proposal. The next day, lawyer Yoon Ho brought up the topic of a friend's husband's infidelity with lawyer Wu Jin. Wu Jin replied that if it were him, he wouldn't mention it as it was irrelevant. Following this, Yoon Kyung spoke with her two clients. She advised them to consider what was best for the children. Mai Jin agreed to the settlement, stating that her decision to relinquish custody wasn't entirely about the 2 billion won, but because she couldn't provide for her two children on her own. If the children stayed with her, they would struggle. Yu Rai tried to change Mai Jin's mind and decision, but ultimately everyone was swayed by Yoon Kyung. She argued that Min Seok would lose his family and a significant amount of money. Jun Hui initially objected, but eventually agreed to the defendant's settlement offer for the sake of his child. The trial concluded with a mixture of complex emotions, joy and sorrow for the plaintiffs, defendants, and everyone present. Dewey was the most affected by the outcome. When Yu Rai questioned Jun Hui's change of heart, Yoon Kyung revealed that she had told him his child wanted to stay with their mother. Yoon Kyung pointed out that Min Jeong would have 2 billion won and more time with both children, as Min Seok would be preoccupied with work and unable to care for them. To celebrate the case victory, Yoon Kyung planned to buy a handbag for her new associate. She also picked up a watch she had pre-ordered for her husband, as their wedding anniversary was approaching. She reminisced about happier times in her marriage, when she had promised to buy him the watch he desired. Returning to her office, Yu Rai discovered that the assistant at the marriage counseling office was the same woman Dewey had seen embracing Yoon Kyung's husband. Dewey no longer wanted to keep the secret. She went to Yoon Kyung's house and told her she knew about her husband's affair. In response to Yu Rai's revelation, Yoon Kyung simply replied that she already knew. Furthermore, she knew the woman her husband was having an affair with was Sa-ra, the assistant at the divorce counseling office. Yu Rai was shocked that Yoon Kyung had endured this situation for so long. As Yoon Kyung recounted their actions, Yu Rai realized she had known for a while. Yoon Kyung had even seen wedding photos of the two of them when she visited her husband's office. Despite experiencing a moment of intense panic, Yoon Kyung had composed herself. She needed to seriously consider her next steps. After hearing everything, Yu Rai questioned why Yoon Kyung hadn't divorced her husband immediately. Yoon Kyung explained that divorce wouldn't solve anything at this point. The business was doing well, and her career was thriving. A divorce now would create chaos and negatively impact everyone. At that moment, Yoon Kyung's husband left Sa-ra's apartment. He went to the hotel as planned to meet his wife. Seeing Yoon Kyung's anniversary decorations and table setting, he insisted on a divorce, but couldn't bring himself to reveal his affair. He blamed Yoon Kyung for neglecting their family, claiming he'd endured it for years alone, and told her to do what she did best: prepare for their divorce. Yoon Kyung stubbornly insisted she would change if he wanted, but he claimed he no longer loved her. After he left, Yoon Kyung sat staring at the watch she'd bought but couldn't give him. She finally accepted that their marriage was beyond repair. After working on 2 cases with Yoon Kyung, Yu Rai had gained considerable experience. She was now entrusted with handling divorce cases independently. Her next client was a woman seeking consultation. She had visited the law firm numerous times but remained undecided about leaving her husband. Yu Rai met with the client and her daughter. This was their 5th visit. Yoon Kyung reminded Yu Rai to decline the case, knowing the woman wouldn't go through with the divorce. It turned out that the daughter was the one who truly wanted the divorce, seeing her mother's suffering and wanting to end it. Just as Yoon Kyung predicted, the client primarily sought a sympathetic ear. However, Yu Rai, forgetting her supervisor's advice, signed a contract with the client, who, feeling emotional, knew that without a contract, the firm wouldn't see her again. After discussing the client's situation, Yu Rai urged Yoon Kyung to make a decision about her own divorce. She declared that trash belonged in the trash can. Yoon Kyung retorted that she was sorting her trash before discarding it. As Yoon Kyung anticipated, Jin Suk called to withdraw her divorce petition. Yu Rai, alarmed to learn her client had been physically abused, told Jin Suk to turn off her phone and let her handle her husband. Unable to reach his wife, the husband called Yu Rai and unleashed a torrent of abuse. He threatened to teach them all a lesson if Yu Rai didn't tell his wife to come home. Overhearing the conversation about the hesitant client, lawyer Woo Jin thought of his colleague, Yoon Kyung. Aware of her husband's infidelity, he worried about her but felt unable to intervene directly. He invited Yoon Kyung for a drink, offering his support and assuring her he was there for her. Meanwhile, Yu Rai returned home to discover that Sa-ra lived in the same building. Moreover, her mother had become close with Sa-ra, the two interacting like family. During dinner, Jin Suk called again, saying her husband had apologized and asked her to withdraw the divorce petition. Yu Rai encouraged her to stand firm. However, the next morning, she learned that Jin Suk's husband had been hospitalized. Rushing to the hospital, Yu Rai was met with Jin Suk's accusations. She blamed Yu Rai for her husband's condition. Back at the office, Yoon Kyung advised Yu Rai to separate her personal and professional personas, lawyer Yu Rai and the individual Yu Rai, to provide the best counsel to her clients. The following day, Yu Rai visited Jin Suk's husband in the hospital. Jin Suk confirmed she was withdrawing the divorce petition. Yoon Kyung also visited the hospital, bringing a gift and telling Jin Suk to contact her when she was ready to proceed with the divorce. Despite her desire to be a lawyer, Yu Rai decided to leave the divorce division, unwilling to work under the current circumstances. She returned the handbag Yoon Kyung had given her, stating she didn't want to split her personality in two. Then she told Yoon Kyung that her husband and Sa-ra frequently dined together and then spent the night at Sa-ra's place. She left the address of her apartment complex and departed. Although resigned to her husband's infidelity and unwilling to divorce, Yoon Kyung waited outside his office and followed the adulterous couple. Witnessing their happiness together, she recalled her own family's joyful past, and a sharp pain pierced her heart. Returning to the firm, carrying a heavy burden of resentment and a heart pushed to its limits, Yoon Kyung decided she wouldn't stand idly by and watch those two scoundrels get away with it. This time, she didn't care about losing face, her reputation, or even her career. She handed Yu Rai her divorce papers. Yoon Kyung stated she would follow her lawyer's instructions to the letter. Yu Rai, shocked, opened the documents her senior colleague had given her. They contained a comprehensive collection of evidence proving Yoon Kyung's husband's infidelity. Facing Yu Rai's stunned and almost pitiful expression, Yoon Kyung proposed they work together to orchestrate the perfect divorce. The very next day, Sa-ra received a court summons along with Yoon Kyung's lawsuit and all the evidence of her affair. Yoon Kyung called Sa-ra into her office for a talk. With everything out in the open, the gloves were off between the wife and the mistress. The husband also received the infidelity lawsuit, just like his mistress. He immediately called his wife, demanding to know what she was doing. Despite trying to remain calm while speaking to the two of them, Yoon Kyung was devastated afterward, tears welling up in her eyes. Yu Rai entered the office, her thoughts a whirlwind. She recalled Yoon Kyung's words. She then went into Yoon Kyung's office, questioning why she had entrusted her with this divorce case. Lawyer Cha explained that while she could have represented herself, she needed Yu Rai's perspective and a different approach. Immediately afterward, Yoon Kyung were focused on work. She and Yu Rai went to meet their next client, the CEO of a large publicly traded company. He was the defendant in this case. His wife was filing for divorce and demanding half of his shares. He explained that he suspected his wife had been having an affair for a long time, but since she lived in the US, he couldn't prove it. After meeting with the client, Yoon Kyung lectured Yu Rai on how to obtain evidence that would benefit their client. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung's husband and Sa-ra sought out a lawyer. The husband declared he wanted custody of their child. Sa-ra seemed displeased with this and turned to the lawyer, expressing her desire for an amicable settlement. At the CEO's court hearing, Yoon Kyung argued that her client and his wife had been living separately. Their marriage had irretrievably broken down, and they considered each other strangers. Naturally, their finances had been separate for a long time. The wife, upon hearing this, claimed they were still happily married. She argued that her husband was claiming separation only to avoid sharing his assets. The plaintiff presented evidence that the husband was still providing his wife with living expenses and that he traveled to the US several times a year. This, she argued, proved they were still living together. Yoon Kyung countered that her client was simply being responsible by providing his wife with 25 million won monthly, even after 5 years of separation. This had continued until the present, leading the plaintiff to believe she was entitled to a share of his assets. After parting with her client, Yoon Kyung received a message from her daughter's teacher reminding her about an after-school activity. Learning that Yu Rai had bought a new car, she asked her junior colleague to pick up her daughter. Yoon Kyung's daughter, Dee-hee, behaved and spoke just like her mother, addressing Yu Rai with a haughty tone and criticizing her for being 5 minutes late. Dee-hee then asked about her parents' divorce. Yu Rai was startled by the girl's astute observation and reasoning. She told Dee-hee it would be best to ask her mother. After her impromptu babysitting duties, Yu Rai felt incredibly stressed. She called lawyer Yoon Ho out for drinks to unwind. Yoon Ho also had a lot on his mind. He'd been on numerous blind dates lately, but hadn't met anyone worthwhile. They spent the evening drinking and sharing their troubles. By the time they were completely drunk, they ended up at a motel. Waking up the next morning, Rai was horrified by the consequences of their overindulgence. She hurriedly left before her colleague woke up. When they arrived at the office, things were awkward between them. Rai asked Yoon-ho for his bank account number so she could transfer him the money for the room. They stammered through a conversation and agreed not to have lunch together anymore. Yoon-ho then mentioned he had a blind date scheduled for lunch that day. At that moment, the CEO, furious, stormed into Yoon Kyung's office to confront her about a news article regarding her divorce. The article detailed the affair between Yoon Kyung's husband and her secretary. The CEO worried this scandal would tarnish his company's reputation. Lawyer Woo Jin intervened, escorting the CEO out and assuring him he would handle the situation. Back in Lawyer Cha's office, Woo Jin expressed his disappointment at having learned about her divorce from an outside source. Remembering her husband's suspicions about Woo Jin, Yoon Kyung told him she would handle her personal matters herself. Shortly after the article's release, Yoon Kyung's husband contacted her, proposing reconciliation to end the matter, claiming he didn't want to put their children through the ordeal. However, Yoon Kyung coldly refused, unfazed by his threats. He threatened to tell the world what a terrible wife and mother she was and vowed to make her regret her decision. Following Lawyer Cha's advice, the CEO stopped providing his greedy wife with any further financial support. Immediately, she sought him out, proposing reconciliation and agreeing to accept less than 50% of his shares. Yoon Kyung, however, rejected the plaintiff's offer. Hearing that the CEO had consulted a lawyer, the husband urged him to give in to his wife's demands, as she was using their children against him. Yoon Kyung countered that if he wanted to lose half his company, he should comply. This sobered the CEO, and he finally heeded Lawyer Cha's advice, severing all contact with his avaricious wife. After the CEO's youngest daughter's birthday, Rai and Yoon Kyung attended the next court hearing. Rai presented a statement written by the youngest daughter detailing what she knew and her perspective. The girl confirmed that 5 years prior, her parents had announced their separation, agreeing to care for their children but live separate lives. Additional evidence included receipts from the CEO's trips to the US to visit his children, showing he hadn't stayed at his wife's residence. A recording from 2 years earlier captured the wife telling the CEO, during a call about their children, that they had been separated for a long time and he shouldn't bother her. All the evidence clearly demonstrated that the CEO and his wife were estranged. The wife was forced to agree to the divorce and return to the US empty-handed. Yoon Kyung took Rai out to celebrate their victory. Rai informed Yoon Kyung that her daughter was curious about the situation. She then sought Yoon Kyung's advice, as her husband's lawyer kept pushing for reconciliation. Yoon Kyung firmly stated she wouldn't reconcile and wouldn't share her assets with her husband. Knowing she was in the wrong, Ra urged her lover to strike first to gain the upper hand. She even fabricated a story suggesting Yoon Kyung had been having an affair for a long time. The husband then met with a reporter, claiming he hadn't shared a bed with Yoon Kyung for 3 years and playing the victim, hinting that he might have been cheated on. Simultaneously, Ra contacted a lawyer, demanding a countersuit against Yoon Kyung. The next morning, an article titled, "The Husband Abandoned at the Office" was published. Everyone who knew Yoon Kyung was shocked. As she and Woo Jin entered the office, whispers and murmurs followed them. At the same time, Rai received the defendant's countersuit. She rushed to her senior's office, only to freeze upon seeing the two seniors close together. Yoon Kyung had cut her hand, and Woo Jin was simply tending to it. Before she could recover, Rai was summoned to the CEO's office. He inquired if there was any chance of a romantic relationship between the two lawyers. Rai firmly asserted her belief in Woo Jin's integrity and her understanding of Yoon Kyung's character, stating that a romantic involvement between them was impossible. After meeting with the CEO, Rai requested a meeting with Yoon Kyung in the consultation room. The younger lawyer was determined to get to the bottom of this case. Yoon Kyung, now being interrogated by her junior, became irritated at being questioned about such scandalous behavior. The two engaged in a heated argument. Finally, Yoon Kyung had to concede to her persistent colleague. Back in her office, Rai racked her brain, trying to piece together the events and the people involved. Senior attorney Woo Jin knocked on her door, inviting her to lunch to discuss strategy. Over the meal, Woo Jin revealed that he and Yoon Kyung had been colleagues for 10 years. He'd witnessed her daily efforts to excel and establish herself, gradually breaking down gender bias in their field. He'd admired her tenacity, her proof that women could perform just as well as men, and this admiration had blossomed into something more. However, 3 months after a blind date, Yoon Kyung announced her impending marriage. From that point on, Woo Jin had retreated, maintaining a professional distance. Yoo Rai, observing him, recognized the depth of his unrequited feelings for Yoon Kyung. "You can't be displaying such deep affection for your client," she cautioned, urging him to step back further to avoid complicating matters. Yoon Kyung's husband, a lawyer himself, had been fired due to the scandal surrounding their marriage. Yoon Kyung returned home, hoping to talk to her daughter, Yi-hee, but the girl coldly refused. Her husband hadn't returned home either, opting to stay at Sa's apartment. The two plotted their counterattack. Sa requested a meeting with Yoo Rai, ostensibly to discuss a settlement. Yoo Rai bluntly called out Sa's childish and despicable tactics, believing that spreading tabloid rumors wouldn't bring down Yoon Kyung. Sa retorted that if this continued, Yoon Kyung would face public condemnation, and left with a smug expression. Yoo Rai, still relatively inexperienced, found herself affected by Sa's psychological manipulation. Back at the firm, she suggested to Yoon Kyung the possibility of settling, leading to a disagreement. Frustrated, Yoon Kyung sent Yoo Rai on an out-of-town assignment. Dewey accompanied her colleague, Yoon Ho, on a long drive to collect payment on a case. Arriving at their client's home, they discovered the elderly couple had divorced and then remarried. Yoon Ho stated that their reconciliation wasn't an issue. They simply needed to pay the 30 million won service fee. The husband claimed he'd only agreed to pay upon finalization of the divorce, which was now moot. The wife then revealed they were bankrupt and unable to pay. Yoo Rai realized the couple had orchestrated a fake divorce and bankruptcy to avoid their debt. Defeated, they apologized for their deceptive scheme. Leaving the couple's house, Yoo Rai pondered the situation. At least they colluded to deceive outsiders, she mused, not each other, like the other couples I've encountered recently. Yoon Ho, after their previous night together, confessed his feelings for Yoo Rai, admitting it had been his first time. Yoo Rai shyly admitted the same, but when he suggested they officially date, she declined, her faith in love shattered by her father's infidelity. She declared she had no intention of pursuing romance or marriage. The following morning, Yoo Rai devised a bold plan. To counter the husband skipping work narrative, she coined the term informal bigamy, a unique and intriguing legal term designed to pique public interest. She also met with the reporter who'd published the initial article, revealing Yoon Kyung's husband's infidelity and his attempt to portray himself as the victim. Yoon Kyung returned home to face her daughter's reproach for missing her camping trip. Yi-hee lamented being the only child without a parent present. When Yoon Kyung promised to pick her up after school, her daughter again rejected her. The next stage of the legal battle unfolded. Articles surfaced detailing Yoon Kyung's experience with informal bigamy, highlighting her husband's long-term infidelity. Public opinion shifted, now offering sympathy and support for Yoon Kyung. The next day, Yoon Kyung attended her first divorce hearing, met by a throng of reporters. Poised, she stated, "I will refrain from discussing personal matters publicly during these proceedings." Yoon Kyung's husband and Sa-ra were absent. His lawyer declared his client's unwavering desire for full custody. Yoo Rai objected, arguing he had abandoned the family for months and their daughter was thriving with her mother. The opposing counsel countered that the child's well-being remained subject to the investigators' findings. Yoon Kyung added that her husband's affair was with someone they both knew, questioning how their daughter could navigate such a situation if placed in his custody. The first hearing concluded without resolution, and Yoon Kyung left to await the next. A woman, also attending a divorce hearing, recognized her and approached, seeking assistance. The husband's lawyer, present as the plaintiff's counsel in this other case, reminded Yoo Rai to quickly secure another client before leaving. Upon returning to the firm, Yoon Kyung received a frantic call from Yi-hee's school. Her daughter was missing. She contacted her husband, who claimed ignorance. Panicked, she searched the school grounds, to no avail. Finally, she received a message from Sa-ra, revealing Yi-hee was with her. Furious, Yoon Kyung confronted the brazen other woman. She found her daughter having snacks with Sa-ra. Asking Yi-hee to wait outside, Yoon Kyung warned her husband's mistress, "Don't touch my daughter. She's my bottom line." Outside, Yi-hee asked, "Is the woman with Dad Sa-ra?" When Yoon Kyung denied it, Yi-hee retorted, "I know you won't tell me the truth." Then she asked, "Who will I live with?" Yoon Kyung assured her she would stay with her mother, with weekend visits to her father. The woman from the courthouse arrived at the firm, seeking legal representation for her divorce. Uri was stunned by her story. The father of her 2 children was an alcoholic, neglectful, and irresponsible. Yet, the mother adamantly refused custody. Shaken, Uri's understanding of conventional divorce cases was challenged. Yoon Kyung confided in Uri, "I'm a bad mother for not being there for my daughter enough. I'm not even sure she'd choose to stay with me." At a team dinner hosted by Yoon Kyung, colleagues praised her legal prowess and expressed sympathy for her situation. Those who disliked Sa-ra made veiled comments, aware of her involvement in the case and suspecting her role as the other woman. Sa-ra, seething, excused herself and slipped into Yoon Kyung's office, peeking at her employee evaluation. She was elated by her perfect score, her dream of a private office within reach. Yoon Kyung entered, asking, "Comfortable in someone else's chair?" Sa-ra urged Yoon Kyung to accept a settlement and split the assets, promising to persuade her husband to grant her custody. Yoon Kyung, sensing a rift between Sa-ra and her husband, thought, "This mistress picked the wrong person to mess with." The next court hearing for the mother of 2 commenced. Her husband, who had previously agreed to the divorce, now declared a change of heart, driving not only his wife but also Uri to distraction. Back at the firm, Uri consulted with Yoon Kyung. In this case, pushing for an immediate divorce wasn't the priority. The first step was to understand the mother's true needs. The woman brought her 2 children to their next meeting with a lawyer. The hyperactive kids were a whirlwind of constant motion and mischief. Their mother confessed she'd been living in hell for the past 5 years. Uri initially questioned how the client could leave her children with such a neglectful, alcoholic husband. However, witnessing the children's chaotic energy, Uri finally understood the situation. Yoon Kyung advised the client to follow her lead. Their objective was to achieve the best possible outcome for the children. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung's husband picked up Yi-hee, taking her to his newly purchased apartment. The astute child bombarded him with difficult questions. She asked if they were going to live together permanently and questioned whether he planned to reconcile with her mother. He could only offer apologies and strained glances. Attempting to connect with her daughter, Yoon Kyung bought Yi-hee a bra, only to be told it was a style she never wore. Yi-hee then asked her mother to stop acting differently. The sudden influx of attention felt unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Yoon Kyung asked Yi-hee directly if she wanted to live with her father. Tears welled in Yi-hee's eyes as she admitted her inner turmoil, unsure of what she truly wanted. Yoon Kyung left her daughter's room, heartbroken, unable to comfort her despite witnessing her distress. The following day, Uri picked up Yi-hee from school, hoping to foster a connection between mother and daughter. She wanted Yoon Kyung and Yi-hee to understand and grow closer to each other. Woo Jin shared a personal anecdote with Yi-hee, revealing that his own father had been unfaithful when he was in high school. Yi-hee, wise beyond her years, simply asked Uri if she was trying to persuade her to live with her mother. Uri reassured her that the choice was hers, encouraging her to choose whomever she felt most comfortable with. Yi-hee poignantly responded that no matter who she chose, the other person would be hurt. Back to the divorce case, the mother of 2 boys followed Yoon Kyung's advice. She feigned exhaustion and left the children in their father's care, intending for him to experience the challenges of parenting them alone. After both parties presented evidence arguing against the other's parenting capabilities, the judge, bewildered by the couple's antics, listened patiently. Finally, Yoon Kyung proposed that the best solution was for the husband's parents, both retired educators with exemplary records, to care for the children. The second hearing concluded without a resolution, leading to a third scheduled court date. Ultimately, through Yoon Kyung's strategic maneuvering, the husband agreed to the divorce and accepted responsibility for raising the children, supported by his parents. The mother would pick up the children on Friday evenings and care for them over the weekend, granting the husband his desired free time. The trial concluded with the mother's satisfaction and the lawyer's shared sense of accomplishment. The next day, Sa-ra arrived at the firm to discover she had been promoted to head of the consulting department. finally receiving the private office she had long coveted. Sa-ra texted her lover about the promotion. Less than 3 minutes later, Yoon Kyung appeared to inform her of her termination. Furious, Sa-ra confronted Woo Jin, accusing Yoon Kyung of wrongdoing and threatening to file a complaint with the Ministry of Labor. She even accused Woo Jin of being no better than herself. Woo Jin calmly retorted that while he too was capable of love, he would never stoop to her level of manipulative behavior. The reality of her situation finally dawned on Sa-ra. She left in tears, met with the disdainful gazes of her former colleagues. Woo Jin and Yoo Rai took a break, strolling together for some fresh air. Woo Jin remarked that Sa-ra deserved her fate for crossing the chairman's nephew. Yoo Rai, horrified, recalled her conversation with her senior and inwardly groaned. Returning to the firm, she ran into an unwelcome acquaintance, Huey Ra, the other woman from her parents' marriage. Huey Ra was there to consult with Yoon Kyung, presenting a handwritten note from Yoo Rai's father bequeathing his house to her. Since Yoo Rai's mother still resided there, Huey Ra demanded Yoon Kyung reclaim the property. Furthermore, Huey Ra insisted Yoon Kyung fire Yoo Rai for exposing her affair at her previous company, leading to her job loss. Yoo Rai rushed to Yoon Kyung's office, pleading with her not to take Huey Ra's case. However, Yoon Kyung asserted that her job wasn't about personal preferences and that the decision to take a case wasn't Yoo Rai's to make. Yoon Kyung then met with Yoo Rai's mother, Kyung. Kyung, distressed, revealed that she had already given Huey Ra 300 million won. Yet Huey Ra had broken her promise and was now harassing her daughter. It turned out Huey Ra had threatened to disrupt Yoo Rai's workplace, airing their family's dirty laundry and humiliating her in front of her colleagues. 8 years prior, Yoon Kyung had represented Yoo Rai's father in their divorce proceedings. Kyung lamented that the divorce had occurred during Yoo Rai's senior year of high school. She would have tolerated her husband's infidelity for her daughter's sake, but with Yoon Kyung representing him, she was forced to accept the divorce and divide their assets with her unfaithful husband. Returning home, Yoon Kyung entered her daughter's room, reflecting on Kyung's words. Seeing no other option, she sighed heavily. The next morning, Yi-hee watched her mother prepare breakfast. Though still grappling with her parents' situation, she seemed brighter than before. She told her mother that Yoo Rai had shared a similar story about her own father's infidelity and abandonment. She then asked her mother for permission to occasionally see Yoo Rai. Meanwhile, at Sa-ra's apartment, the two fired lovers discussed their newfound free time together. After hearing her lover mention taking his daughter to see his new apartment, which she loved, Sa-ra arrived the next day with her belongings, intending to move in. He bluntly stated that while he loved her, he had no intention of marrying her. He drew a clear line, emphasizing that his daughter, Yi-hee, was his top priority. A heated argument ensued, culminating in him telling her, "Let's break up if you continue like this." At Yoo Rai's mother's house, Huey Ra persisted, demanding Kyung transfer ownership of the house. Despite Kyung explaining that the 300 million won was gone, Huey Ra argued that Yoo Rai, as a lawyer, could easily earn more. She threatened to cause a scene at Yoo Rai's firm if the house wasn't handed over. Empowered by Yoon Kyung's advice, Kyung recorded her conversation with Huey Ra and presented the recording, along with proof of the 300 million won transfer, to Yoon Kyung. Back at the office, Yoo Rai confronted Yoon Kyung about Huey Ra's case, but received no answers, leaving her frustrated. Later, Yoo Rai received a text from her mother about a blind date waiting for her in the lobby. Reluctantly, Yoo Rai met the man, exchanging pleasantries to avoid embarrassing her mother. She then spotted Yoon Ho with his parents, greeted them, and excused herself awkwardly. That evening, Yoon Ho took Yoo Rai to dinner, carefully managing his affections to avoid scaring her. Though consumed with jealousy upon hearing about her blind date, he feigned indifference. After dinner, Yoo Rai, feeling awkward, suggested she take a taxi home alone. Meanwhile, attorney Chot, after years of prioritizing work, began to dedicate more time and attention to his daughter. Yi-hee thrived under her mother's care, their bond strengthening day by day. The following day, Huey Ra confronted Yoon Kyung again, demanding Yoo Rai's dismissal. Yoon Kyung brought up the 300 million won, revealing that Yoo Rai was unaware of the transaction. She warned Huey Ra that if the intimidation continued, she would take action. She then summoned Yoo Rai to her office, causing Huey Ra, knowing Yoo Rai's temperament, to become instantly apprehensive. Yoon Kyung then dismissed Huey Ra, stating she was busy and wouldn't take her case. She offered the case to Yoo Rai, who initially refused. Yoon Kyung then bluntly told Huey Ra to leave. A bewildered Yoo Rai watched, completely confused by the unfolding events. The two lawyers then sat down for a private conversation. Yoon Kyung confessed to representing Yoo Rai's father and his mistress years ago, explaining that she wanted to handle this case as a way of apologizing to both Yoo Rai and her mother. With the misunderstanding cleared, Yoo Rai and her mother shared a genuinely happy meal together, finally freeing themselves from the lingering pain of their past. Following the lawyer's advice, Yoon Kyung's husband amplified his accusations, claiming she had neglected him and their daughter for 13 years, even highlighting how he had bought Yi-hee her first sanitary pads. While recognizing the exaggerations, Yoon Kyung couldn't argue, simply stating she had done everything for her family. He retorted that she was driven by career advancement and fame, not concern for him. Yoon Kyung appealed to the family investigator, emphasizing that as women, they should understand that no mother would willingly neglect her child. After the meeting, she accepted a ride home from Woo Jin, expressing surprise at her husband's infidelity and his demand for custody. Woo Jin consoled her, pointing out that despite his flaws, he hadn't abandoned his parental responsibilities entirely, unlike many divorced couples. Back at the office, Yoon Kyung sought Yoo Rai's advice on buying a gift for Yi-hee to strengthen their relationship. Yoon Kyung's husband consulted with his lawyer, who advised him to end his relationship with Sa-ra. Unbeknownst to him, Sa-ra was pregnant. Preoccupied with Yoon Kyung's divorce, Yoo Rai and Yoon Kyung enlisted Woo Jin's help with a year-long custody case nearing its conclusion. The son involved expressed his desire to live with his father. However, during the final hearing, the plaintiff's lawyer presented shocking evidence. The boy was not the husband's biological son. Woo Jin informed Yoon Kyung, and they decided to pursue back child support. Woo Jin then met with the devastated father, who, expecting a favorable outcome, was in disbelief. He arranged to meet his son, obtaining his toothbrush for a paternity test. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung's husband went to Sa-ra's apartment to end their relationship, only to discover she was 8 weeks pregnant. Sa-ra argued that her child, like his daughter, needed a father. Stunned, he was unable to break up with her. The following day, Yi-hee visited her father as scheduled. They spent a joyful day at the park, reminiscing about happy memories from her childhood. He then took her to their new apartment, where she discovered Sa-ra's ultrasound picture in a drawer, quickly realizing her father was having another child. Later, she met with the family investigator to share her feelings. After listening to the investigator talk at length, the little girl, Yi-hee, said she would only open up if the adults were honest with her. After a long and eventful day, the 3 members of the family each carried unspoken burdens in their hearts that night. Yi-hee, aware of everything happening with her parents, didn't know what to do and cried alone in her room, heartbroken. Sa-ra, the other woman, became even more possessive after getting pregnant. She felt entitled to recognition and a public acknowledgement of their relationship. Later, the lovers had a heated argument about how the 4 of them would live together. Faced with the sudden realization that the son he had cherished for years was not biologically his, the father struggled with the truth. He was left with 2 choices: sue the mother for damages or let it go. Suing her would mean legally declaring he had no relationship with his son. Unable to attack the adults directly, Sa-ra targeted the child. She approached Yi-hee, told her about the baby she was carrying, and expressed her belief that Yi-hee would be a good older sister. Sa-ra's actions were unacceptable. Woo Jin's client, the father, was deeply troubled by the situation with his son. He invited his lawyer out for a drink and confided in him. Out of love for his son, he decided to withdraw the paternity disavowal lawsuit. The mediation session followed. The father received an apology from his wife. He angrily scolded her for not considering him and their son, but then asked her to keep the secret of his not being the boy's biological father. He also decided not to sue for damages, only wanting the right to visit his son whenever he pleased. The final agreement: the father would have regular visitation rights whenever he and his son wished. The mother relinquished her share of their joint assets as compensation for raising the child for so many years. Yi-hee's next meeting with the investigator was at Yoon Kyung's house. This time, Yi-hee openly shared her thoughts and decision. Afterward, Yoon Kyung met with the investigator and learned that her daughter had known about her father's affair with Sa-ra for a long time. Too young to know what to do, she had silently endured and witnessed the affection between her father and his mistress. Furthermore, Yi-hee knew about Sa-ra's pregnancy. Hearing this shocking news, Yoon Kyung was devastated. She couldn't bear the thought of her daughter going through such an ordeal. In a fit of rage, Yoon Kyung went to Sa-ra's house. She grabbed Sa-ra's hair and demanded to know if the pregnancy was true. Sa-ra remained defiant, arguing that she hadn't done anything wrong and that Yi-hee had a right to know about her sibling. Fearing for her safety, Sa-ra quickly retreated into her house. Yu-rai's mother came out and brought Yoon Kyung inside. She told Yoon Kyung that she had handled the situation better than she herself had in the past. She comforted her, saying that everything would eventually pass, and that, for mothers, their children's well-being always comes first. Later, Yu-rai met with a new client at the law firm. The client, Sun-ae, sought legal representation for her affair. After a heated discussion, Yu-rai became exasperated by Sun-ae's stubborn refusal to understand her advice. Lawyer Han went to Yoon Kyung's office for help. The two sisters then sat down and listened to Sun-ae's story. The woman claimed the man had told her he was about to get a divorce, so she was the victim in this situation. Seeing another version of Sa-ra before her, Yoon Kyung thought about her own situation. Sa-ra had the same attitude when they spoke. These other women always justified their actions by blaming the wives for their husband's infidelity. Sun-ae's story mirrored that of Yoon Kyung's husband and his secretary, Sa-ra. Sun-a was being sued for adultery by the man's wife. She intended to countersue, accusing the couple of deceiving her, as she believed they were on the verge of divorce, but were now happily married and traveling the world together. After hearing the story, Woo Jin concluded that the husband was just looking for women to satisfy his needs. Seeing her senior colleague getting worked up while talking to the client, Yu-rai worriedly sought advice from Woo Jin. He suggested she take Yoon Kyung out for spicy rice cakes and talk about her own divorce. He believed Yoon Kyung would then figure out what to do and regain her composure. Yu-rai decided to follow Yoon Kyung's wishes instead of her own approach. When Yoon Kyung's husband learned about the situation involving their daughter, Yi-hee, he confronted Sa-ra. This time, Sa-ra didn't bother hiding her intentions. She stated that she didn't want to live with Yi-hee. Only at this moment did the husband regret his impulsive desires that cost him his wife, daughter, and family. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung and Yi-hee opened up to each other completely. Yoon Kyung also made an effort to spend as much time with her daughter as possible. Back to Sun-ae's case, Yu-rai received a letter from the wife. She poured out her heart about her marriage. She had known about her husband's infidelity since she was pregnant, but because she couldn't fulfill his needs, she endured it. Her only wish was to get through each day peacefully and give birth to their child. The husband's affair was officially exposed when Sun-a called the wife directly. After the baby was born, the husband knelt and begged for forgiveness, asking for a second chance, claiming he only sought other women to fulfill his physical needs. The wife met with her husband's mistress, simply wanting an apology. However, Sun-a berated her for not being able to keep her man. This prompted the wife to file an adultery lawsuit. At the mediation session, Sun-a continued to insist she was the victim. Both sides argued back and forth for a long time. Eventually, Yoon Kyung persuaded Sun-a to apologize, albeit insincerely. The wife accepted this, as monetary compensation wouldn't lessen the pain she had endured. Seeing the mediation conclude this way, Yu-rai was curious about her senior colleague's thoughts. The two went out for drinks together. Yoon Kyung recalled the plaintiff's words. She knew her husband's apology was merely to avoid divorce and separation from his family, but she accepted it because she didn't want her child to grow up without a father. Yoon Kyung also confessed her own feelings. Perhaps she had felt the same way before, which is why she didn't want a divorce. She just wanted her husband to change, apologize, and come back. Yu-rai, listening nearby, felt a pang of sadness. While she confided in Yoon-ho about her senior colleague, Yoon Kyung sat wearily with Woo Jin. The lawyer, who had secretly loved her for years, was heartbroken by her unhappy marriage. He wanted to comfort her with a hug but hesitated. In the end, he only offered words of sincere encouragement. The next morning, Yoon Kyung was surprised to find Sa-ra at her office. Sa Ra knelt and apologized for hurting Yun Kaiying and Yi He, explaining that she wanted a more peaceful life. Yun Kaiying felt even angrier upon hearing this. She firmly dismissed Sa Ra from her office. Afterward, she called Yu Rai and thanked her for everything. Although she knew her junior colleague had orchestrated the apology, and that Sa Ra's apology lacked sincerity, Yun Kaiying felt a sense of relief. That evening, Yun Kaiying and Yi He prepared dinner together. Yi He apologized to her mother for causing her sadness. Yun Kaiying hugged her daughter and apologized in return. They both hoped for happier days ahead. The next morning, after breakfast with her mother, Yi He complimented her mom's cooking and then asked to be excused from visiting her father that week. She explained that he was busy taking care of the baby and she didn't want to bother him. Yun Kaiying's heart ached for her daughter, and she didn't want to force her to do anything she didn't want to do. Lawyer Yu Rai took on a new client. The client, a friend of Yun Ho's mother, was an older woman who shared that her husband and children were successful, while she had remained stagnant for years. Now, she wanted to reclaim her life and divorce her middle-aged husband, haunted by a lifetime of pouring him drinks. When Yu Rai asked her assistant to pour some water, the client became agitated and demanded a different lawyer. Fortunately, she calmed down and shared more about her life. Her husband and children took it for granted that she would sacrifice herself to care for them and prioritize their needs. As a result, the entire family constantly made demands on her. Yu Rai tried to understand her client's situation but approached it from a different perspective. She wanted her client to rediscover herself, not necessarily through divorce. Yu Rai met with Yi He as scheduled. The girl expressed her thoughts on her parents' situation. She had chosen to live with her mother and wanted everything to be over quickly. She didn't want to face gossip when she started middle school the following year. Yi He thanked Yu Rai for not pitying her like others did. Yu Rai replied that she understood, having experienced something similar. After meeting with Yi He, Yu Rai met with Yun Kaiying's husband. She proposed offering him 30% of their joint assets and informed both of them that Yi He wanted a swift resolution. At the meeting with the investigator, Yun Kaiying's husband still believed his daughter would choose to live with him. He was shocked to hear she wanted to stay with her mother. He then accused his wife of preventing him from seeing their daughter, as he had planned to explain Sa Ra's pregnancy to her. He continued to criticize his wife for being competitive and causing their daughter distress. The two left the meeting without reaching an agreement. Regarding the older client seeking a divorce, she scheduled a mediation session for her family, hoping to dissuade her from leaving. Her husband and 2 children accused her of being selfish and causing trouble by wanting a divorce at her age. The woman, Liu Dare, declared she had sacrificed her entire life for her husband and children, living like a shadow in her own home. Now, she wanted to be a writer, Lai Soar, not an invisible woman. With that, she left, leaving her shocked family behind. After learning his daughter didn't need him, the husband found his mistress sitting comfortably in his living room. In his anger, he told her he didn't want to see her again. A heated argument about their present and future ensued. Sa Ra finally realized the man she loved didn't truly care for her. He only sought a replacement because his wife wasn't taking care of him. Overwhelmed by the argument and being kicked out, Sa Ra suffered a miscarriage and was rushed to the hospital. The doctor informed her the pregnancy couldn't be saved due to various factors. Sa Ra had to accept the reality. She had to break up with a man who didn't love her. Through the lawyer's efforts, she and her clients, the Lair couple, agreed to give their marriage another chance. They signed an agreement to work on their relationship for 2 years. They would live separately, dividing their assets equally. The husband could see his wife only with her consent. As Zhu Dare started to get up for a drink, her husband quickly fetched her some water. The outcome of this mediation satisfied everyone. Yun Kaiying's husband, after breaking up with Sa Ra, went to see his daughter. He stubbornly insisted on explaining himself and winning her back. Yi He, though reluctant, agreed to meet with him. She went to his house and opened up about her feelings. She wasn't upset about what happened between her parents, but rather that her father had lied to her for a whole year. She told him she had known about his affair for a long time and had given him many chances to change. Yet, he continued his wrongdoing and even wanted a divorce. At this point, the father truly understood that his wife hadn't influenced their daughter. He was the reason Yi He had distanced herself. When he asked her to stay and let him make amends, Yi He replied that those who make mistakes should accept the consequences, not avoid them. She finally told him that if he truly wanted to make amends, he should end the lawsuit so that she and her mother wouldn't suffer further. Sa-ra then left the city, returning home to her family, ending the illicit affair she had started. Yi He returned home to her mother, and they happily prepared dinner together. The next mediation session was peaceful. Yoon Kyung's husband no longer sought custody. Yoon Kyung said she wouldn't impose a visitation schedule. Yi He could see her father whenever she wanted. Next, they discussed asset division. The husband's lawyer demanded 50% of the marital assets. Uri objected to this figure, engaging in a heated argument with the older lawyer. Ultimately, both Yoon Kyung and her husband wanted to conclude the proceedings quickly, having recognized their respective faults. They now shared a single goal: to ensure their daughter Yi He's well-being and proper upbringing. After signing the divorce papers, the husband apologized to Yoon Kyung. Although belated, the apology brought her peace. She said they should both focus on taking care of Yi He. Leaving the courthouse, Yi He and her mother agreed to put the past behind them and move forward together. Yoon Kyung took down the family photo, and Yi He put away pictures of herself with her father. Yoon Kyung then joined her colleagues outside for a celebratory gathering, marking the quicker-than-expected conclusion of her divorce. After everything that had happened, Yoon Kyung finally expressed her sincere gratitude to her lawyer. Uri also shared her heartfelt sentiments with her senior colleague, wishing her a better future. The director, who had never liked Yoon Kyung but tolerated her due to her years of contributing to the company, now found her personal life damaging the company's image. He planned to let her go, calling her to his office and making veiled remarks. Astute and perceptive, Yoon Kyung recognized she was on the chopping block and was subsequently fired. She received a call from Yi He's teacher about changes in her daughter's behavior due to the divorce. Yoon Kyung decided to take a leave of absence to spend time with her daughter. Around the same time, Uri met with 3 young clients seeking legal representation. A college student, Sang Chun, was being sued for having an affair with a married woman. His 2 friends explained they had created an online dating profile for him, fearing he was lonely, which led to the current predicament. Uri considered asking Yoon Kyung for advice but learned she was on leave, deciding not to disturb her. Lawyer Woo Jin learned about Yoon Kyung's leave, something she hadn't done in over a decade of working together. Concerned she might have met with the director and learned about her impending dismissal, he visited her office. Yoon Kyung asked Woo Jin to cover for her during her time off and to look after both Uri and Yoon Ho, who was struggling with the client's case. Uri sought Woo Jin's advice. Sang Chun revealed a peculiar detail. The husband and child of the woman he loved shared names with 2 Marimo moss balls she kept. He had texted expressing his desire to be with the moss balls, intending to convey his feelings for the woman. But the message was misinterpreted as acknowledging the existence of her husband and child. Woo Jin pointed out that the evidence against Sang Chun was strong, leaving Uri with a headache. She then recalled the dating app Sang Chun had mentioned downloading and studying intently. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung and Yi He prepared for a trip. Yi He remarked that it was her first trip with her mother. With Yoon Kyung on leave, Uri and Yoon Ho each received nearly 30 additional cases. Yoon Ho complained, while Uri felt deeply for her senior colleague. After thanking Yoon Ho for taking her picture, she created a profile on the dating app, determined to investigate the case her own way. After swiping left and right, she finally found the profile of the woman in question, named Han. While her juniors struggled at the office, Yoon Kyung's trip with her daughter was also fraught with challenges. Unaccustomed to constant childcare, she was unaware of her daughter's health sensitivities. Yoon Kyung forgot to pack Yi He's medication and even prepared ramen with plenty of onions, which Yi He disliked but ate anyway to please her mother. She simply reminded her mother to be mindful of her preferences in the future. Though Yi He claimed she didn't want to see her father, he was never far from her thoughts, especially when others inquired about him, intensifying her longing. Even on their outing, Yi He couldn't stop thinking about her father. Yoon Kyung noticed but felt helpless in the situation. Back at the law firm, Yoon Ho assisted Uri. While Yoon Ho approached Ha-run, her supposed husband lurked nearby, snapping photos. The couple worked seamlessly, gathering evidence to expose their target's alleged infidelity. Meanwhile, Ha-run's husband visited Sang Chun at school, demanding 30 million won and threatening to publicly humiliate him if he refused. He even threatened to sue Sang-chun for having an affair with his wife. Terrified, Sang-chun called Yu-rai, suggesting he pay the money. Yu-rai firmly disagreed, encouraging her client to neither apologize nor settle. Despite being overwhelmed, Yu-rai refrained from contacting Yoon Kyung. Woo Jin also reminded the staff to leave her undisturbed during her break. However, Yoon Kyung felt a pang of loneliness at the lack of contact. Coupled with her perceived shortcomings as a mother, she felt deeply disheartened. Ha-run's husband, believing Yoon-ho had taken the bait, went to the law firm, confronting and accusing him of having an affair with his wife. At this point, Yu-rai informed Woo Jin of her plan. Intrigued, he offered words of encouragement to his junior colleagues. Yu-rai declared, "It's time to counterattack and bring everything to light." She instructed Yoon-ho to immediately message Ha-run for a meeting. The couple, believing Woo Jin was infatuated with Ha-run, eagerly anticipated the encounter. The following day, Ha-run brought a spread of food to the law firm to meet Yoon-ho. Once the food was laid out, Yu-rai and Sang-chun entered, confronting Ha-run directly. Initially, she feigned innocence, claiming to be a victim of deception. However, after Yu-rai exposed her actions, Ha-run called her husband, demanding he drop the lawsuits against both Sang-chun and Yoon-ho. Later, Woo Jin celebrated with Yu-rai and Yoon-ho over drinks. Witnessing Yu-rai's enthusiasm for her work, Woo Jin was reminded of Yoon Kyung years ago. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung and Yi-hee tried to make the most of their trip, but Yi-hee's longing for her father grew unbearable. While riding a tandem bicycle, Yoon Kyung accidentally caused them both to fall. At the hospital, Yoon Kyung panicked as Yi-hee cried, begging her to call her father. When Yoon Kyung promised to be a better caregiver, Yi-hee cried even harder, lamenting the absence of her father. The two embraced in a heartbreaking moment of shared grief. Finally, unable to contain her emotions any longer, Yoon Kyung called Yu-rai, seeking solace in her junior colleague. Deeply concerned, Yu-rai rushed to the hospital upon receiving the call. The two women sat together, sharing their burdens. Yoon Kyung confessed, "I thought I was Superwoman, but it turns out I'm just ordinary." Yu-rai offered comfort and reassurance, emphasizing how much both she and the firm needed Yoon Kyung. At the same time, Woo Jin decided to accept the position of director at the law firm. His father was very pleased with his son's decision. Immediately afterward, the director took Woo Jin to meet Chairman Chun of the Chun Medical Foundation. This man was a major client whom the director valued highly. The two sides signed a cooperation agreement for the next 5 years. All legal cases related to Chairman Chun would be handled by the Daejeong law firm. Right after signing the contract, Chairman Chun immediately asked Woo Jin to handle his daughter-in-law's divorce lawsuit against his son. Woo Jin wanted to assign this VIP client to Yoon Kyung, but his father insisted on giving it to Yu-rai. He said Yu-rai was a newcomer, competent, and would be easier to manage. After returning to the firm, the director called Yu-rai to his office and assigned her Chun H1co's lawsuit. He also mentioned that he was planning to fire Yoon Kyung. When Yu-rai said she needed to review the files and consult with her superior, Yoon Kyung, the director immediately threatened to fire Yoon Kyung on the spot if Yu-rai continued to insist. Then, the director gave Yu-rai an ultimatum. If she took the case and won, he wouldn't fire Yoon Kyung. Hearing this, despite her reluctance, Yu-rai had to accept Chairman Chun's son's case. In the file, the wife accused her husband of domestic violence and demanded a divorce. However, the plaintiff had no evidence to prove the abuse. Yu-rai met with Chairman Chun's son to gather information. The husband claimed his wife had repeatedly asked for a divorce, her motive being to extort money from him. Furthermore, he quickly provided evidence of money transfers to his wife. The first hearing for the divorce lawsuit arrived. The judge asked the plaintiff to clarify her situation, as her lawsuit lacked evidence, making it difficult for the court to accept her divorce request. The wife looked fearfully at her husband and said she had indeed been abused, but hadn't had the opportunity to gather evidence. At this point, Yu-rai presented evidence of the husband's monetary deposits to his wife. Yu-rai argued that the injured party in this case was the husband, not the wife. Due to the lack of further information, the judge announced that the next hearing would be a mediation session. The wife was deeply disappointed by the news and quickly left the courthouse, looking worried. When Uri went to the restroom, she found the wife hiding there. Uri turned on the faucet to wash her hands. The traumatized wife screamed and begged her to turn off the water. At that moment, Uri noticed a bald patch on the wife's head, recalling the testimony in the divorce petition. Uri began to doubt the husband's statements. Uri directly asked the husband if there was any truth to his wife's claims. The Chun heir was furious at being questioned in this manner. He immediately called Wu Jin to complain and demanded a different lawyer. The next day, Wu Jin called Uri to inform her that Yoon Kyung would be added to the list of lawyers handling the case. He then spoke with Yoon Kyung about the client's request. In fact, Yoon Kyung understood Uri's personality and guessed that the young lawyer's predicament was partly her own fault. She went to Uri's office, apologized, and asked Uri to work with her to resolve the client's issue smoothly. Only then could she keep her job. The two women reconciled after days of giving each other the cold shoulder. Immediately afterward, the two lawyers met with their client, H1CO. He continued to insist that he hadn't abused his wife and demanded that they reject the divorce petition. At the mediation session, the husband arrived with the two lawyers, while Jae-young, the wife, fought her battle alone. This time, Jae-young presented evidence, a recording of H1CO telling her he would cure her fear of water. She recounted how each time her husband's demands for intimacy were refused, he would brutally abuse her. H1CO, however, claimed his wife had a phobia of water and that he was merely trying to help her. Seeing the wife's extreme distress and pleas for a divorce, the two mediators decided to conduct separate mediation sessions, meaning they would speak to each lawyer without the other party present. Yoon Kyung and Uri stepped outside to talk with H1CO. Inside, the wife sobbed desperately, begging the mediators to save her life. Finally, the mediators decided to initiate a family investigation. This meant Jae-young wouldn't have to live with her husband until the results were out. H1CO flew into a rage upon hearing the news, hurling insults at both Yoon Kyung and Uri. On the way home, Uri felt frustrated. It was clear everyone could see the husband's abusive behavior, yet nothing could be done about it. Chairman Chun called the director to complain and demanded Uri be removed from his son's case. Wu Jin's father had to humble himself and ask Yoon Kyung to accompany him to meet the client's father. Upon arrival, Yoon Kyung received shocking news. Wu Jin was now the director of the law firm, and moreover, he was the former director's son. Back at the firm, Wu Jin and Yoon Kyung had a heated argument. Yoon Kyung couldn't believe she'd been deceived by her junior colleague for 14 years. She criticized Wu Jin for accepting the case, knowing the client was at fault, simply for the firm's benefit. Wu Jin finally confessed that he'd been pressured by his father, who wanted to fire Yoon Kyung. He then admitted to ordering his senior colleague to handle the case professionally. The following morning, H1CO showed up at Yoon Kyung's office. He urged her to wrap up the case quickly, offering more money if necessary. At this point, Yoon Kyung directly asked if the accusations of domestic violence were true. The husband dropped the pretense and admitted to abusing his wife, even threatening to kill her if the court granted the divorce. That evening, at H1CO's house, Jae-young managed to escape. She ran to her parents' home seeking refuge from her husband. Unexpectedly, her mother believed her son-in-law and criticized Jae-young for being unreasonable, suggesting she reconcile with her husband over their petty arguments. H1CO arrived and took his wife back home. Back at the law firm, Yoon Kyung told Wu Jin that she and Uri would no longer handle H1CO's case. She also played him the recording of H1CO threatening to kill his wife. Immediately afterward, Yoon Kyung received a call from H1CO asking her to come to his house. Seeing this, Uri quickly followed her senior colleague. Sensing danger, Yoon Kyung told Uri to stay outside. She instructed Uri to call the police and report domestic violence if she didn't come out in 10 minutes. Then, Yoon Kyung entered the client's house. In the living room, she found furniture overturned and Jae-young lying barely conscious on the floor. Seeing Yoon Kyung, she pleaded for her life. H1CO remarked to his wife that he'd beaten her nearly to death, yet she was still clinging to life. When Yoon Kyung tried to call for help, H1CO snatched her phone and threw it away. At that moment, Jae-young breathed her last. H1CO grabbed Yoon Kyung by the neck, asking how much money it would take for her to accept a suspended sentence. she retorted that he deserved a life sentence. H1Co threatened to harm Yoon Kyung's daughter, adding that he no longer needed a witness. He then began to strangle Yoon Kyung. Fortunately, she managed to break free and run outside. By then, the police, alerted by Yoo Rai, had arrived at H1Co's house. He immediately called his father for help before being taken away by the police. Yoon Kyung returned home in a state of shock. Recalling H1Co's threats, she grew increasingly worried about her daughter. Yoo Rai called her boss to report the situation. She was at the police station giving her statement. H1Co had been arrested at the scene of the crime. Woo Jin received a call from Chairman Chun. He informed him that he was refusing to represent his son. Immediately after, Woo Jin's father summoned and reprimanded him. Losing this VIP client would put the firm in a difficult position. Early the next morning, Yoon Kyung intended to go to the police station to report the incident and act as a witness. However, she saw news reports about Jae Young's murder, stating that Yoo Rai had reported herself as a witness at the scene. Although Woo Jin urged both women to stay home and rest, assuring them he would handle everything, Yoon Kyung and Yoo Rai still went to the firm. Yoon Kyung questioned why Yoo Rai had identified herself as a witness, knowing the danger it posed for her junior colleague. She stated that she would take responsibility for everything related to the incident. At the first trial hearing, after the prosecutor presented the charges against the defendant, H1Co immediately put on a pathetic display, weeping and wailing apologies. His lawyer claimed his client had a history of mental illness and submitted a request for a suspended sentence and probation, citing this as the defendant's first offense. Yoo Rai intended to testify in court. Yoon Ho, upon hearing this, tried to stop her. Not wanting the woman he liked to be put in danger, he sought Yoon Kyung's help to protect Yoo Rai. Meanwhile, haunted by H1Co's threats, Yoon Kyung frantically searched for her daughter when she couldn't reach her by phone. It turned out Yi Hee had texted her mother asking permission to go sing with friends. Relieved to have contacted her daughter, Yoon Kyung rushed to pick her up. Yi Hee, sensing her mother's distress, hugged her and reassured her that everything would be all right. After days of reflection on the events, compounded by the negative publicity surrounding the firm and Yoo Rai, Yoon Kyung decided to meet with the prosecutor and request to testify publicly in the next trial. Woo Jin, having received confirmation of the completed paperwork for the change in directorship, also submitted the cancellation of the agreement with Chairman Chun. His father reluctantly called a meeting with all department heads. The attendees criticized him for signing the contract with Chairman Chun, which had led to the current predicament. Woo Jin took responsibility and declared that, effective immediately, he was the firm's director, and his decisions no longer required his father's approval. He also announced the termination of the agreement with their VIP client, the Chun family. At the second hearing, the prosecutor requested a change in the defendant's charge from assault to murder. Despite the defendant's objections, the judge allowed Yoon Kyung to testify. At the third hearing, Yoon Kyung took the stand. She testified to everything that had transpired at the scene. Jae Young could have been saved, but the defendant hadn't called for medical assistance. Furthermore, Yoon Kyung presented an audio recording from the scene, capturing H1Co's confession to the murder. Anticipating trouble from H1Co, who had repeatedly threatened to kill his wife during the divorce proceedings, Yoon Kyung had taken the precaution of bringing a recording device. While the trial was underway, Yoo Rai staged a protest outside the courthouse against unfair divorce laws that disadvantaged abused wives like Jae Young. The law firm staff, seeing Yoo Rai on the news, joined Yoon Ho in front of the courthouse, supporting her protest. Their combined efforts ignited a wave of public support and anticipation for the verdict. Finally, with only 1 day left until the final verdict in H1Co's case, the entire divorce department had dinner together. There, Yoon Kyung announced that both Yoon Ho and Yoo Rai had completed their probationary periods and could officially work independently as lawyers, no longer as trainees. Faced with the irrefutable evidence presented by Yoon Kyung, H1Co was sentenced to life imprisonment. News of the verdict brought satisfaction to the concerned public. They swiftly shifted from criticizing Yoon Kyung to praising her lavishly. The two sisters left the courthouse and gave interviews. Yoon Kyung stated that she had done this to contribute, in a small way, to changing the prejudices and discriminatory regulations against women. She then spoke with Yu Rai, informing her of her decision to leave the firm and build her own career. Upon hearing of Yoon Kyung's unwavering decision to leave, Woo Jin went to see her and say goodbye. Although reluctant, Woo Jin knew there was nothing else he could do. The timing wasn't right for him to hold on to his senior colleague any longer. Everyone at the firm bid farewell to their beloved colleague of many years. Yoon Kyung remembered the families of each and every employee and had shown genuine care for them all. Everyone felt a pang of regret at her departure. Yu Rai insisted on quitting her job to follow her mentor. Yoon Kyung didn't allow her to do so, knowing that staying at the firm was the best option for Yu Rai's future. Looking back at the building where she had spent over a decade, Yoon Kyung silently said goodbye. Then, she turned and strode towards a brighter future, filled with determination and vigor. Soon after, Yoon Kyung had her own law office set up. Back at the firm, Woo Jin officially assumed the role of director. The staff enthusiastically congratulated him on his new position. Director Woo Jin then called Yoon Ho and Yu Rai into a meeting. He told Yu Rai that he could transfer her to the corporate consulting department, as per her initial request upon joining the firm, or she could take a position in the pro bono department. Slightly taken aback, Yu Rai asked for some time to consider her options. Yoon Kyung also embarked on her new role at her own office, conveniently located near her daughter's school. They made plans to always have lunch together after school, before Yi-hee went to her tutoring sessions. Yi-hee beamed, overjoyed at the prospect of spending more time with her mother. After eagerly awaiting her first client, Yoon Kyung's inaugural case proved rather unusual. The husband, a convicted fraudster currently incarcerated, sent her a letter requesting a consultation. When Yoon Kyung met with him, he complained that his wife, who had visited him weekly last year, had filed for divorce as soon as he was imprisoned. After listening to his story, Yoon Kyung presented him with a contract. He then asked her for some spending money, promising to sign the contract the next time she visited. Yoon Kyung promptly left, instructing him not to write to her again. Returning to her office, Yoon Kyung felt a pang of unease. If the lack of clients persisted, she would soon run out of funds and be forced to close down. As she was preparing to leave for the day, Yu Rai arrived to visit her mentor. The two then went out for Korean barbecue. When Yoon Kyung asked how Yu Rai found her office, she replied that she looked up the address through the bar association. After complimenting her junior colleague, Yoon Kyung declared that she would grill the meat while Yu Rai footed the bill. She joked that she wasn't even earning a salary like her disciple yet. Yu Rai readily agreed, happy to treat her mentor. As they parted ways, Yu Rai asked Yoon Kyung for advice regarding the director's offer. Yoon Kyung replied that Yu Rai already knew what the right choice was. The two sisters smiled and said goodbye, both filled with a sense of happiness. Mrs. Jin Suk, who had previously withdrawn her divorce petition, returned to see Yoon Kyung, determined to finalize the divorce this time. She insisted that she absolutely had to divorce her husband. After some thought, Yoon Kyung advised Mrs. Jin Suk to see Yu Rai, assuring her that she would help her achieve her goal. Meanwhile, Yu Rai referred a client to Yoon Kyung, confident that her senior colleague could help them win their case. The two clients then effectively swapped places. Yu Rai met with Mrs. Jin Suk, while Yoon Kyung met with her second client. The woman explained that despite working tirelessly, she couldn't keep up with her gambling-addicted husband's demands. He would find ways to take every penny she earned and gamble it away. Their only remaining asset was a piece of land inherited from his mother. When he tried to sell it, his mother intervened, and he subsequently kicked his wife out of their home, leaving her with nowhere to go. Yoon Kyung advised her that the divorce itself wouldn't be difficult. Finding evidence of his gambling would solidify his fault in the breakdown of their relationship. The woman then revealed that although they had lived together for 26 years, they were never officially married. Upon hearing this, Yoon Kyung saw a clear path forward, as the situation became much simpler to handle. The husband needed his wife's consent to secure a loan from the bank. She was a co-inheritor of the land, regardless of their lack of marriage certificate. When the husband called his wife, she didn't answer and instead sent him her lawyer's information. Shocked, he rushed to Yoon Kyung's office to confront them. He boasted that he wasn't afraid of his wife, Mal Suk, since they weren't legally married. Yoon Kyung countered that after 26 years together, Proving fault in their relationship wouldn't be difficult. His gambling habit and resulting debt were widely known. Yoon Kyung then proposed a settlement, in which Mal Suk would receive 300 million won instead of 500 million won, which represented half the current value of the land. Initially, the husband protested. However, Yoon Kyung revealed that she knew about his lucrative business deal, which would likely increase the land's value to 2 billion won in the near future. If they waited, his wife's share would be 1 billion won instead of the 300 million won offered in the current settlement. On Yoo Rai's side, she had just received Jin Suk's divorce petition when Jin Suk called to say she no longer wanted a divorce. It turned out Jin Suk had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. She said since she was likely going to die anyway, there was no point in getting divorced. Although Yoo Rai suggested she should still make a definitive decision for herself, Jin Suk insisted she didn't want to leave this world with the stigma of a divorce. Yoo Rai met with Jin Suk's husband. She persuaded him to agree to a divorce settlement to fulfill his wife's dying wish. Yoo Rai's client was finally able to let go of the marriage that had caused her so much suffering for so many years. As for the gambling-addicted husband, driven by greed and devoid of any remaining affection for his wife, he was easily manipulated by Yoon Kyung's words. Fearing he might lose out financially, he eventually accepted the settlement. Right on the deadline Yoon Kyung had set, the 300 million won was transferred to his mistress. Afterward, the gambling husband mortgaged his land, bet everything on one game, and lost it all. He went crawling back to the wife he had previously scorned, but Mal Suk was naturally no longer interested. While Yoon Kyung was having lunch with a client, she discovered that Yoo Rai had referred Mal Suk to her. Later, Yoo Rai learned from Jin Suk that her senior colleague had also referred Jin Suk to her, telling her that only Yoo Rai could fulfill her wish. After reflecting on her time working with her senior colleague, Yoo Rai decided to continue working in the divorce division at Woo Jin's law firm. Upon hearing the news from his staff, Woo Jin immediately thought of Yoon Kyung years ago. He chuckled and thanked Yoo Rai. Yoon Kyung received another letter from the client who had been in jail. He told her he would sign the agreement to finalize his divorce. He then gave her a list of contacts fellow inmates who also wanted her help with their divorces. The 4 former colleagues gathered at Yoon Kyung's office for a small celebration of her initial success. Yoo Rai stayed behind to thank her senior colleague for helping her find her path in life. They exchanged compliments, enjoying a light-hearted moment. They had shared a meaningful time working together. The next day, at the same time, a married couple each sought out a lawyer to file for divorce. The husband went to Yoo Rai, while the wife went to the famous divorce lawyer, Mr. Cha. Both sides poured out their hearts and blamed each other. The husband complained that his wife was a nymphomaniac, demanding sex every day, driving him to distraction. The wife told Yoon Kyung that her husband was impotent but refused to see a doctor for treatment. Both demanded that their lawyers file suit immediately, as each wanted to be the plaintiff in the case. After filing her petition, at the same moment her senior colleague filed hers, Yoo Rai went to visit Yoon Kyung. They shared a meal and discussed their unique clients. Neither of them knew that in a few days, they would be facing each other in court. Although fast, she wasn't as fast as her former colleague, so Yoon Kyung's client became the defendant in the divorce case. She was frustrated but had to accept it, then presented evidence of her husband neglecting his marital duties. Yoon Kyung later reviewed the plaintiff's petition and was surprised to see that the plaintiff's lawyer was Yoo Rai. He was suing his wife for what he claimed was a sex addiction. On Yoo Rai's side, her client let her listen to recorded conversations between the couple. The wife argued that sex should be a daily activity, like eating or drinking, and accused her husband of avoiding intimacy. Given the delicate nature of the situation between the couple, Yoon Kyung wanted them to reconcile, believing it would make the case easier. She called Yoo Rai to negotiate an amicable divorce settlement, but Yoo Rai flatly refused, stating that she and her client would not agree to reconciliation. At this point, Yoon Kyung could only laugh and admire how skilled her protégé had become. After much deliberation, Yoon Ho decided to ask his boss for permission to return to his hometown to visit his family. He also wanted to find his own path, like Yoo Rai. He bid farewell to his boss and then to his office crush, leaving her feeling a profound sense of loss, as she had become accustomed to his presence. Unable to negotiate a settlement over the phone, Yoon Kyung went to her former firm to meet with Yu Rai. Once again, the two colleagues debated whose client was at fault in the divorce. Ultimately, Yu Rai remained firm, stating her client did not want to reconcile. Yoon Kyung urged her to consider what would be beneficial for both the husband and wife. Annoyed by her junior's stubbornness, Yoon Kyung vented her frustration to Woo Jin. Woo Jin then invited her to go and distress by eating her favorite tteokbokki spicy rice cakes. While eating, Yoon Kyung grumbled incessantly about Yu Rai. Meanwhile, Yu Rai, unlike her two seniors, was swamped with handling divorce cases on her own. At the first mediation session, the two colleagues simply listened as their clients argued back and forth. During the couple's exchange, both Yoon Kyung and Yu Rai discovered a crucial piece of information. They both spoke about their inability to have children. After the unsuccessful mediation session, both Yu Rai and Yoon Kyung spoke privately with their clients about the issue of children. The wife explained that she had been diagnosed with fertility issues and had quit her job to focus on improving her health and trying to conceive. Knowing her husband's desire for children, she had become anxious about having sex every day. The husband confided in Yu Rai that he was under immense financial pressure. Supporting his wife and himself was already a struggle. He feared he couldn't handle the added burden of a child. In addition to his regular job, he was working extra hours to increase his income since his wife was now a homemaker. Yu Rai then went to Yoon Kyung to discuss the situation. Both realized that the couple was suffering from a misunderstanding. The wife, afraid her husband would leave her because she couldn't conceive, hadn't confided in him. The husband, fearing his wife would look down on him for his financial struggles, hadn't discussed money with her. After discussing the situation, they decided to make an exception and intervene with their clients. They arranged a meeting for the couple at Daejeong Law Firm. There, the husband and wife finally opened up to each other about their fears and concerns. Afterwards, Yoon Kyung and Yu Rai advised them to think things over carefully. If they still decided to divorce, they should contact their lawyers. In the end, the couple decided to proceed with an amicable divorce, admitting they were both exhausted from the ongoing conflict. The divorce proceedings were quick and straightforward. After leaving the courthouse, the husband invited his wife to a farewell meal. Then, to everyone's surprise, he affectionately took her hand. They walked away, leaving Yu Rai astonished and Yoon Kyung smiling with satisfaction. Yoon Ho took several days off and had no contact with Yu Rai, ignoring her texts. Upon his return to the firm, he announced his resignation, shocking Yu Rai into speechless silence. It turned out Woo Jin was behind the orchestration. Recognizing Yoon Ho's talent, he recommended him to Yoon Kyung, anticipating her newly opened law office could benefit from Yoon Ho's expertise. This resulted in Yoon Ho's sudden departure, leaving Yu Rai heartbroken. With his sharp business acumen, Yoon Ho quickly helped Yoon Kyung establish her firm's image and began promoting it widely. However, both Yoon Kyung and Woo Jin were troubled by the frozen state of Yu Rai and Yoon Ho's relationship. Though he was fond of Yu Rai, Yoon Ho understood her perspective on life and chose to quietly support her from afar. Unable to bear it any longer, Yoon Kyung and Woo Jin engineered a chance encounter, arranging a private dinner for Yu Rai and Yoon Ho. After locking the young pair in a private room, the two senior lawyers cheerfully went off for hot pot. Yu Rai and Yoon Ho finished their awkward meal and parted ways. The time apart from Yoon Ho made Yu Rai realize the depth of her feelings for the kind lawyer. Tired of the emotional turmoil, she decided to confess. She ran after Yoon Ho, embraced him, and asked if they could officially date. Having longed to hear these words, Yoon Ho held the woman he loved tightly. Both beamed with happiness, officially confirming their relationship. A year passed quickly. Yoon Kyung and her son had almost fully recovered from their past trauma. Her law firm thrived. Attorney Han finally found a legal assistant after a long period of struggling alone. Just as things seemed smooth sailing, both law firms encountered equally difficult clients. The wife of the former director of Daejeong Law Firm, whom Woo Jin referred to as his stepmother, after 2 years of separation from her difficult and patriarchal husband, approached her stepson for help in filing for divorce from Woo Jin's father. In this delicate situation, Woo Jin sided with his stepmother. He brought her to Yu Rai, entrusting her with handling the divorce case with utmost care. As Yu Rai spoke with her new client, Woo Jin's father arrived, berating his wife for making a mockery of him by seeking help from his son's firm. The estranged couple immediately began arguing. The wife defended her choice, seeing nothing wrong with hiring her stepson's firm. The furious father confronted Woo Jin for siding with his wife. Woo Jin calmly explained that he chose to support the woman who had raised him with dedication and care for 30 years, while his father refused to acknowledge her contributions. Unable to argue his point with his wife and son, the former director stormed into Yoon Kyung's office. He complained that his wife had not only filed for divorce, but had also enlisted his own son's firm to sue him. Full of pride, he demanded Yoon Kyung win the case for him at all costs. During the first court hearing, the former director and his wife argued incessantly. She lamented her sacrifices for her husband and child, feeling unappreciated, while he countered that he worked tirelessly to provide for them. Yet she constantly criticized him for neglecting the family. She also resented being labeled a gold digger after years of caring for him and his son. Their argument continued even outside the courtroom. Woo Jin intervened and offered to take his stepmother home. Yoon Kyung followed the former director, claiming to understand his true feelings. She argued that his strong reaction indicated lingering affection for his wife. Woo Jin, comforting his stepmother, also sensed her remaining love for his father. Later, Yoon Kyung summoned Woo Jin. Sharing her assessment of his parents' situation, she expressed her conviction that the former director didn't truly want a divorce, evidenced by his constant avoidance of mediation sessions despite her pushing for a quick resolution. Hearing Woo Jin's observation that his stepmother also seemed to be seeking a swift resolution through reconciliation, the two sides met before the official court mediation. The wife proposed a settlement of 2 billion won in exchange for an immediate divorce. The husband had previously told Yoon Kyung that 2 billion won was his acceptable limit for a divorce settlement. The two lawyers, working in concert, subtly pressured the husband into signing the agreement, leaving him confused and somewhat resentful that his own lawyer seemed to misunderstand his intentions. The couple resumed their bickering, each blaming the other. The same issue remained, neither acknowledged the other's importance. He felt unappreciated for his financial contributions, while she felt like a single mother despite being married. He constantly used work as an excuse for his absence, leaving her lonely and exhausted, yet she persevered in caring for him and his son. After hearing the lawyer's words and the judge's earlier admonishments, the proud and formerly aloof former director suddenly stood up, walked towards his wife, and knelt. He thanked her for raising their son and apologized for neglecting her feelings of loneliness. Seeing her husband's humility, the wife also knelt, apologizing for her constant criticisms and for not fully understanding his struggles to provide for them. The elderly couple embraced and wept openly before the two young lawyers. Woo Jin, witnessing the scene from outside, was deeply moved. Having cleared their misunderstandings, the former director took his wife out for a celebratory meal. Woo Jin thanked Yoon Kyung for her timely intervention in reconciling his parents, preventing future regrets. Yoon Kyung, in turn, felt sympathy for Woo Jin, realizing the extent of his emotional burden. Seeing her daughter reading the book she used to share with her father, Yoon Kyung knew she missed him. She told her daughter, "If you want to see your dad, just call him." Yi-hee, feeling conflicted, called Yu-rai to talk. She worried that forgiving her father now would hurt her mother. Since Yu-rai had been through something similar, Yi-hee wanted her advice. Yu-rai explained that forgiving her father and seeing him were two different things. If Yi-hee missed him, she should see him. Otherwise, she might end up like Yu-rai, filled with regret for not seeing her father while he was alive. Now that he was gone, Yu-rai could no longer see him, even if she wanted to. Yu-rai relayed Yi-hee's feelings to Yoon Kyung. After hearing this, Yoon Kyung thanked Yu-rai and arranged a meeting with her ex-husband. She told Yi-hee's father that she didn't want their daughter to be estranged from him. If this situation continued, they might never see each other again. He confessed that he missed his daughter terribly but knew he had made a mistake and didn't dare to call her. He said he respected Yi-hee and would wait for her to reach out. Yoon Kyung pointed out that their daughter was still young. If the adults didn't guide her, she wouldn't know which path to take. Finally, they agreed to arrange a meeting between father and daughter. Yoon Kyung then spoke with Yi-hee, telling her that her father missed her very much and asked if she would be willing to visit him. Knowing that Yi-hee worried about upsetting her mother by seeing her father, Yoon Kyung explained that it was an adult matter, and that Yi-hee shouldn't worry too much about it. She could choose to forgive her father or not, but Yoon Kyung didn't want her daughter to lose the only father she had. The decision to forgive was Yi-hee's to make. Yoon Kyung just wanted her daughter to be happy. Finally, the tension between father and daughter eased. After over a year of not seeing each other, Yoon Kyung arranged for Yi-hee to meet her father. She wished them a good time and left them to have some privacy. Yi-hee finally opened up to her father, and they grew closer after this reunion. As for the adorable couple, Yoon-ho and Yoo-rai, after over a year of happy dating, they finally exchanged rings, marking their commitment to each other. Despite their deep affection for one another, sisters-in-law Yoon Kyung and Yoo-rai continuously faced off in court. They argued fiercely during trials, but outside the courtroom, they would share spicy rice cakes and discuss the best strategies for their respective clients.